just 5 states that does not have a specific hate crimes law. And a broad and bipartisan statewide campaign is underway to pass a fully inclusive bill at the State House. Coalition leaders are here to explain the business case for legislation. Plus, veteran investors at Indianapolis-based Allos Ventures have raised a third fund to help fuel Midwest tech growth. Co-founder and managing partner Don Aquilano will tell me where some of the $40 million has already been invested. And during the cold winter months, why not stay indoors and learn something new? From decorating a cake to new techniques in a kitchen or workshop. Our Trindiana segment has a few fun ideas from around the state. Details on those stories and much more ahead on this edition of Inside Indiana Business.
Show with music full. Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
Hello and welcome to Inside Indiana Business. I'm Gary Dick. Indiana continues to attract some unwanted national attention for being one of 5 states that does not have a specific hate crimes law, especially in the wake of the 2015 RFRA controversy. That's why organizers of Indiana Forward say creating a comprehensive hate crimes law is both a human and economic issue. The campaign now includes more than 700 supporters from business, nonprofit, education, and faith communities. And joining me now are the president and the CEO of United Way of Central Indiana, Ann Mertlow, who is a lead organizer of the group, as well as the director of external communications at Cummins, John Mills. And welcome to the program.
Thank you.
This promises to be a hot button issue at the Indiana State House. First of all, as you talk about hate crimes legislation, Indiana, one of 5 states without comprehensive or specific language around a hate crimes law. Talk about the status and where we are right now.
That's right. We are one of 5 states that doesn't have a recognized bias crimes law, and there are a couple of problems with that. Number one, the fact that we don't have specific enumerated characteristics makes it very difficult and unlikely that judges will actually apply a law. And the second is that similar laws that are vague have been determined to be unconstitutionally vague and therefore not enforceable. So it's time for us.
And this is a big issue in the business community and a number of organizations around the state. As I mentioned, a new organization, Initiative Indiana Forward, was actually launched this week, 700 plus members. So it is a large group and a pretty diverse group from around the state.
Absolutely. And United Way has a very big interest in this for 2 reasons. Number one, we bring together all segments of the community to tackle big issues. And communities that are strong are able to really gain all of that power by bringing all segments of the community together. And if you're not included or you feel fearful, you are not going to be part of that. Number 2 is strong communities start with strong economics. And anything that acts as an economic development deterrent is not good for our state or the people we try to help.
John, let's talk about that. Why is this such a big business issue for a company like Cummins? And I know there are a lot of small and medium-sized organizations involved as well.
We've got to have a community and a state that is welcoming to all people to recruit and retain top talent. As Ann said, it's an economic issue, but it's also a social issue. It's the right thing to do, and when we're doing the right thing, we're able to recruit better people, the best people, the top talent that we want.
Let's talk about that. How does this impact that talent recruitment element? We saw what happened during the RFRA controversy several years ago. Indiana got a lot of unwanted national attention, negative attention, rightly or wrongly. We were cast in not a good light. How does that impact on the talent side?
Well, obviously, we need to move past that, and we need to show that we've learned from that and that we are a welcoming, progressive community. I think there are a lot of businesses, a lot of organizations, and most of the public, more than 60% of the public, are supportive of this. The time is right. The governor has made it clear he's supportive of this. We have organizations, businesses, large and small, throughout the state that want this. We see it as an economic opportunity. We see it as an opportunity to really engage the next generation who are looking for those companies that do the right thing, that are involved in their communities, that are strengthening communities, that care about diversity and inclusion. We've got to show that as a state. We are competing against Silicon Valley. We are competing against against the East Coast. In order to be successful, in order to continue the economic growth of the state, we've got to make strides, and the time is now.
Yep. Okay, Ann, let's talk about the outlook, how you see things playing out. At the end of the day, a number of bills will be considered, but is it the specific language in the inclusion or non-inclusion of groups of people that is really, at the end of the day, really going to be the defining issue in this whole debate?
It is. We think that the enumeration of those characteristics, including sexual orientation and gender identity, is critically important to this effort. So at this point, there have been a number of bills that have been introduced, and we are looking to work with legislators over the next 4 months to determine the best bill that meets our criteria. And Indiana Forward's criteria is based on the enumeration of those characteristics.
As John mentioned, the governor has expressed his support for it. There are legislators, though, with that specific language who have problems with the language. How do you see this playing out? I know it's a long process. Are you just at the beginning of that process now?
We are at the beginning. It's at the beginning of the session, and it's always a complicated process. We do know that there's significant support for this effort, that it's an economic imperative. And the truth is that a couple of years ago, our state was painted in a very unfavorable light, and that stain on our reputation is not going to go away unless we fix this.
All right, we'll be following the story, hate crimes legislation at the Indiana State House. Ann Mertlow from the United Way of Central Indiana, John Mills from Cummins. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Well, still ahead, some suggest that Indiana cities and towns are competing while peers nationally are collaborating. The CEO of Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, or AIM, and Fishers Mayor Scott Fadden is here to explain the push to create investment hubs. It's time now to go inside innovation, brought to you by DMI, mobilizing enterprises for the connected world. Well, Indianapolis-based venture capital firm Allos Ventures is continuing its focus on helping build high-growth tech companies in the Midwest and has announced its latest fund, the $40 million Allos 3 Fund. The co-founder and managing partner of Allos Ventures, Don Aquilano, is here now to talk about the fund's first investment and how it continues the firm's focus on investment in early-stage B2B software and tech-enabled service companies. As always, Don, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I should mention you raised $40 million, but your goal is even larger than that for this fund.
Yeah, we set out to raise $75 million, and yeah, we have a first closing at 40, and we'll continue to work on building our portfolio and investing in the Midwest.
And talk about some of the entities and individuals you raise the money from.
Yeah, we're blessed, as we have been all along, from state support, whether it was originally from the IEDC and now this Next Level Fund, which is one of our anchor investors, as well as a stable of great tech CEOs who understand the space, they understand the activity in the ecosystem, and they understand the need, the capital gap that exists. So we're blessed to have them both as an asset as well as an investor.
Talk about the Allos model and that focus, that B2B focus, and here in the Midwest as well.
Yeah, there's so much going on with respect to solving significant enterprise issues with software, and we do it in two different ways in terms of different stages. We have a seed program, Allos Alpha, which we invest in companies with just early ideas, maybe early beta customers and revenue, but we also invest in larger companies that have $1 million to a few $1 million in revenue. And so we've had some very good experience with early stage companies like Amplify and Lessonly that started off very early, and we've helped scale them up, and they're great performing companies now.
I was going to say, you're really hitting on some real success stories that are an increasing part of the tech ecosystem in our state.
Yeah, absolutely. We love the ecosystem compared to when we first got here and started Allos in 2010, and when we first started investing as early as 2000. It's been night and day in terms of the activity, the support, the deal flow, and the infrastructure. So it's a great place to be investing.
All right, and this $40 million raise, you've already made your first investment, another fast-growing tech company here in Indianapolis.
Yeah, absolutely. Delighted. We've been tracking Perk all along, a great couple of founders, a great culture. Their core business is more than tripling. We're excited to join 4G Ventures and Elevate. And on the board with Tim Kopp from ExactTarget, and continue to help grow and scale that business.
This is a significant announcement, and for again the tech ecosystem. As we wrap up here, as you look at the landscape out there for venture capital and innovation and new ideas and those things percolating in Indianapolis and around the state, what's your take?
Yeah, it's as good as it has ever been. I mean, still 2/3 of all venture capital ends up in 3 different states, but that is starting to change, and the energy is really here, and people are starting to catch on, and that's why we're excited to be investing.
All right. Don Aquilano is the co-founder and managing partner at Allos Ventures. Allos 3, a new fund, raised $40 million, a big deal. Don, as always, good to see you. Thanks for being on.
Likewise. Thanks for having me.
Well, here's what's on tap in tech news, served up now by Sun King. The Indiana University Philanthropic Venture Fund has announced a $500,000 investment in Indianapolis-based Diagnotes. The company, co-founded by an associate professor of strategy and entrepreneurship at the Kelley School of Business, focuses on helping healthcare professionals communicate with each other, as well as patients and caregivers through a single cloud-based platform. The city of Boonville moving forward on a 4-acre solar farm to power its new sewage treatment plant. Mayor Charlie Wyatt tells the Courier and Press the project expected to save the city about $6 million over 30 years. And Zionsville-based 120 Water Audit has named Erica Walker Director of lead programs. She will manage support and guidance for state agencies, schools, and utilities engaged in lead sampling and remediation efforts. And for Tech News 24/7, be sure to check out InsideIndianaBusiness.com. Still ahead, Indiana ranked as the 5th best state for the cost of doing business, 2nd in property tax index, but lags in population growth, workforce, and wages. Accelerate Indiana Municipality CEO Matt Greller and Fishers Mayor Scott Fadness are here to explain how investment hubs could turn things around. Here's what's making news now around Indiana, brought to you by your Indiana Pacers. Well, a joint venture between Indianapolis-based Heritage Environmental and Zinc Nacional in Mexico has announced plans to set up shop in Muncie. Wells Sustainable Products plans to invest $75 million to build a 30-acre kiln facility at the former Borg Warner campus. The project expected to create up to 90 jobs over the next several years, but that number could grow to several hundred. Amazon.com says it has hired 500 employees at the Gary delivery station it opened last month. Our partners at the Times of Northwest Indiana report the hires range from seasonal delivery associates to full-time assistant managers and station operations managers. And the former executive director of the Hancock County Economic Development Council has died. Skip Cooker passed away at Hancock Regional Hospital after a 5-year battle with cancer. Despite that diagnosis, Skip was a tireless advocate for economic development in Hancock County and the region. Skip Cooker was 55. Well, according to 2016 U.S. Census Bureau data, on average, Indiana state and local governments have about $8 billion less to invest compared to municipalities in other parts of the country. Accelerate Indiana Municipalities, or AIM, believes the state must pivot to focus on people and improving quality of life to retain and attract talent. That's why AIM wants to create investment hubs. Joining me now to explain the concept are AIM CEO Matt Greller and Fishers Mayor Scott Fadness. And gentlemen, welcome to the program.
Thanks.
Matt, first of all, that stat I teed up there, $8 million less on average that Indiana municipalities have less than their counterparts elsewhere. Why is that? Why is that happening?
Well, I think a lot of it has to do with tax policy over the years from the legislature. We've done a very, very good job of being an excellent business climate tax state, as most people know. What we have to do now is double down on attracting talent, attracting people back to the state, and that starts in cities and towns. It starts where we can build quality places and bring those folks back home.
And you also talk about Indiana cities and towns competing a lot, whereas their counterparts in other places are collaborating more. Is that something you feel needs to change?
Yeah, absolutely. If we're going to be competitive with our counterparts around the country, it has to happen on a regional basis. So the jurisdictional boundaries that we have in place today have got to move away, and we've got to work together.
Mayor Fadness, you have been a big proponent of regional collaboration. Certainly a lot going on, a lot of development in Fishers, as we report on a lot. As you look at these investment hubs, this is somewhat of a natural extension of the Regional Cities Initiative.
Absolutely is. It's about sustainability. So the Regional Cities idea was a wonderful one-time shot, capital infusion into certain areas of our state to create better quality of place initiatives. But ultimately, what we need to do is have a flywheel of reinvestment into our regions. And this idea that AIM is proposing, that we're working diligently on, is all about that. If we can invest money into our regions and those regions prosper, more revenue is generated, then we reinvest back into those regions. And that cyclical flywheel approach is what really starts to move the needle towards creating the type of cities that I think the next generation of talented people want to live in.
And you're talking about pivoting to talent, retaining, attracting talent, but also creating something that's sustainable, that's not just a 1 year, 2 year hit.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is, part and parcel to, I think, the governor has a very progressive agenda, a real visionary agenda around regionalism. And I think we all recognize that. We want to fall in line with that. And frankly, I think local governments want to come off the sidelines and start being an active participant in forming those regions and being a part of it.
This is about putting the onus on local governments, right? Matt, talk about these investment hubs and how they'd work.
Yeah, so it would take multiple communities to come together, at least 5 or 100,000 population, to gel around the idea of creating a hub. They would opt in through a series of provisions in the legislation that we're proposing, and they would create a governance body that would invest not only back into the bricks and mortar types of things we do on a daily basis, roads and streets and water and sewer, but also on transformational regional type projects.
This is something to be considered at the Indiana State House this year. Scott, as you look at this, what's the potential for this type of model?
It has the potential to change the course of a lot of our regions here in the state of Indiana and truly transform our areas. I think the conversation, and it's been really encouraging talking to the leadership at the State House, there's a recognition that regions need to work together. There's a recognition that we got to give some tools to the locals to be able to do that. And so I'm encouraged on both fronts that I think this legislation has such potential to transform our local regions. And at the same time, I'm really encouraged by the relationship and the open dialogue between state legislators and local units of government. All right,
Fishers Mayor Scott Fadness and Matt Greller, the CEO at AIM, will be following investment hubs at the State House. Look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Gary.
All right. Well, coming up next, if your New Year's resolution is to try new things or find a new hobby, on our Trendiana segment, Yelp's Brittany Smith has some ideas from around the state on how you can create memorable experiences, maybe even create your own masterpiece. There she is in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, powered by the commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, in this month's Trendiana segment, we'll show you how to learn something new in the new year with DIY offerings from around the state. The experience economy, it's really blossomed over the last several years as more and more people turn to experiences over owning items. Yelp's Midwest Regional Director Brittany Smith, as always, is here to show us more. And Brittany, welcome.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, the experience economy, I think it's a great term, but it really is something that's gaining some traction.
Yes, and like we were talking about, it's one of those things where a business that might already exist, let's say like Gallery Pastry Shop, they're adding on to their business and adding elements where people can see behind the scenes and actually learn something new. People are wanting to see how things work.
Great, you've got a lot of great examples, very much a statewide representation as well. We begin up north in South Bend with Make South Bend.
Yes, this is a workshop where you can go in, you can actually use the space on your own, bring items in, or they have all the equipment you might need there. So you can take everything from a class on embroidery to stained glass, learn something new. They also offer classes for kids, which is, you're seeing a lot of these programs add on to that. And it's also a shop to find local items. So it's a one-stop shop for all of those things.
And certainly this maker movement is so real as well. As we go down to the southeast portion of the state and Jeffersonville, Maker 13.
Yeah, Maker 13 has 3D printing, laser etching, all of this equipment that might be hard for an individual to get their hands on, but you can go there, take a class, learn about woodworking, metal smithing. It's actually so popular, they've got a Maker 13 mobile space that they take to events around the community so that people can learn there in the Louisville area as well.
Okay, you mentioned Gallery Pastry Shop, so very tasty.
Oh, yes.
Learn how to
For sure,
make some
all of these
treats.
beautiful cakes and eclairs. So this is located in Sobro at 54th along the Monon and College. This space has not only popular for brunches, but now they have their industry experts right there where you can learn about oil painting with buttercream, pies and tarts, different classes each month that are really fun for couples or individuals. And they're actually opening up a new space this year at 16th and College, just around the corner. Yes.
DIY, I think, is big in the cooking area, and you can take cooking classes at the Olive Twist, which is in Northeast Indiana, Fort Wayne.
Yes, in Fort Wayne. So this is actually actually an olive oil and vinegar shop. So the beautiful thing about these classes are you can take the class, learn about all the ingredients, and then right under that same roof, purchase the items to take home. Wow. So they're teaching you techniques, and then at the end you get to have the meal, and people love that you can go online, purchase it very easily, and then show up.
All right, back here in Indianapolis, you've got Make It, Take It classes at the Indianapolis Arts Center.
These are a blast. So they're $40. You drop in. It's a great way if you don't want to commit to a 10-week class. You can try your hand at, let's see, ceramics, glass blowing, several different options. They have over a dozen different classes. And actually, February 13th, if you're trying to think of some Valentine's Day plans, they have a pop-up classes that night. Dinner and drinks provided inside. It's really fun.
All right, our last stop here in Indianapolis, the Holy Cross neighborhood, and calligraphy.
Yes, Manayunk. So this is a really fun business. People are wanting to learn more about modern calligraphy as well as chalkboard art. I know a lot of the restaurants you're going around town, you're going to see more of that beautiful chalkboard art, but you can do it yourself and learn it. So Manayunk offers their classes online as well as in pop-up classes throughout the city. Peace Water Winery on Mass Ave is one of their spots for chalkboards and Chardonnay. So you can have a glass of wine and feel creatively inspired.
Oh, very good. DIY, do-it-yourself, really the rage around Indiana. Brittany Smith, as always, thanks for some great examples. Well, coming up, when he was diagnosed with a rare degenerative eye disease as a teenager, Mark Drazen didn't really know about his future, what it would hold. After a 6-month program at Bosma Enterprises, he now works at Eli Lilly and Company. Stay with us.
Stand by D1 Sound, sponsored open with music. Stand by camera 3 with Gary. We're out in 5, 4, 3, 2, dissolve, cue Gary.
It's time now for the Business of Health, brought to you by Hendricks Regional Health. Well, the national unemployment rate for people who are blind or visually impaired is 70%. But Indianapolis-based nonprofit Bosma Enterprises is working to surmount that challenge. Business of Health reporter Kylie Valletta explains how. Kylie.
Thank you very much, Gary. Bosma Enterprises helps adult Hoosiers who are blind or visually impaired gain life skills to remain independent. For this particular employment issue, the nonprofit attacks it from both sides, training people who are blind or visually impaired with important job skills and educating employers about being more inclusive and hiring people who are blind or visually impaired. Mark Drazen is a Bosma alumni and joins me now to share his story and his message for employers. Thank you for being here, Mark.
Thank you.
Well, let's start with your story because you have a powerful one. You weren't born blind, but you had a major life change in your mid-20s. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I was diagnosed when I was about 20 years old with a rare genetic disease. And like most of those, at first it doesn't touch you very hard. Through the years, as I got older, every year I saw less than I did the year before. I hit a point where I really couldn't do the job that I used to do. Had stepped out of that career and was trying to figure out what to do with my life without that career and the loss of my sight. And I discovered Bosma. And someone had introduced me to it, and I began to go through, after deciding what I want to do, I went through training there for about 5.5 months and just changed my life.
So you are a success story. You currently work at Eli Lilly and Company as an alliance manager. Tell us a little bit more about the program that you went through at Bosma and how it made you job ready.
Yeah, Bosma's programs are really trained to kind of touch on all the aspects of your life. And so when you go there, they're really kind of tailored to meet what you're looking for. And it'll teach you everything from homemaking skills, how to clean and cook, to computer skills and learning technology that can assist you. They'll teach you mobility skills, and then you go through counseling, both on your own as well as group therapy sessions to spend time finding out that other people have been through what you've gone through.
So let's talk about the employer side of the equation, which is part of your message. You say hiring a person who is blind or visually impaired is not charity, it's good business practice, and it's good for the bottom line.
Absolutely. I mean, the reality is disabled people spend every day of their lives problem solving their life, and what better person to bring in to look at the problems of a corporation than somebody who's so used to trying to think in a completely unique way. On top of that, we're engaged in a time of life where we're an aging population, and so you've got employees who are getting older, and if they don't have a disability now, they may develop one, and that's something that employers have got to wrap their heads around.
So you're very vocal about this topic. You do public speaking events. So let's expand this out to people with various disabilities. How can companies hire them and better accommodate their workplace for them?
Well, I think there's a lot of resources that are out there that are there to help them. I think some of the things that employers need to do are, number one, that you've got to let go of some of the biases of what we think disabled people are capable of. The reality is there's a lot of invisible disabilities, and you probably have people in your workforce that are disabled that you don't even realize are disabled. The other thing that we can do is train your people, right? Talk to your managers and talk to your recruiting agents and help them understand that. And when you're interviewing somebody with a disability, you may have to interview them a little bit differently than you would otherwise. You still want to look for those skills, but you may have to go about looking for those answers a little different.
We have just a few seconds left, but what is the heart of your message for employers? What do you want the takeaway to be for them?
That we're in a new age, and there's an untapped population of employees out there that have skills that are valuable to you, and we just have to be willing to bypass what we think we know.
Well, Mark, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story. Gary, back to you.
All right, Kylie, thank you. Well, the Indiana Manufacturers Association has begun an employer-driven education initiative to help advance technical skills for students. The initiative builds on the state's efforts to help students pursue career and technical education and employers to establish that all-important pipeline of talent. Here now to tell us more about this program that has just launched is Indiana Manufacturers Association Vice President of Workforce Development, Policy and Administration, Stephanie Wells. And Stephanie, as always, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay, let's talk about, first of all, let's tee up this issue, this talent issue, this skills issue. For manufacturers around the state of Indiana, how critical is this talent pipeline issue?
Well, our warning light is on. It is our most critical issue. Regardless of sector in manufacturing, a lack of available skilled labor, it is hampering our ability to grow. So we have a population growth issue here in the state. We have an employability skills issue. We have a skills gap issue. And also we have a boomer retirement bubble that is fast approaching. So we're being sort of squeezed from a variety of different directions. Yeah. So we anticipate that without something changing pretty quickly, we won't be able to fill about 60% of our skilled production jobs in the next decade.
Well, that's a big number. Okay, a lot of efforts around the state, certainly at the state level and elsewhere, to kind of get at this issue.
Right.
The Indiana Manufacturers Association has just launched InFame, right?
Right.
Talk about this program. What makes it different from other training programs?
Right. So InFame stands for the Indiana Federation of Advanced Manufacturing Education. So this is actually a nationwide program created by Toyota in Kentucky a number of years ago. It's now in 12 states, 28 chapters. So what this is and how it's different is that it is very hard for many employers who are busy making things to start a training program from the ground up. So this is somewhat turnkey. There is a roadmap on how to start this. It's collaborative, it is cooperative, it's a multiple employer and a regional framework. So this is post-secondary. It's selective, so the employers that join a FAME chapter or create a FAME chapter will have access to the best STEM talent in their area for the very critical technicians that we need in the 21st century.
So talk about how it works. If I'm a tool and die shop in southern Indiana and I want to participate, I want to connect, how does it work?
Well, they should go to www.indianafame.com to learn more. They can contact me. And then what I'm happy to do is go and explain to them how they would get a chapter started. They would find a higher education partner to work with. So this is an 1,800 work hour, 5-semester dual track program. So graduates of the program will have an associate's degree and a whole lot of experience, work experience, and so they're global best trained.
So as you look, you've just launched the program, but look out a year, 2 years down the road, how can you see InFame really impacting that whole talent pipeline in manufacturing?
Right, so it's not a silver bullet, but it's a start. So we understand that our employers need entry-level production, and they also need very highly skilled technicians. So this is for very highly skilled technicians, and it is a selective program. But we think one of the added benefits of starting a regional chapter or regional collaborative to create one of these technician programs is that then you have a formalized sector partnership in that area, and you can start building other ancillary programs and recruiting strategies to find your assembly team talent and some other, even executive or professional level talent in your area.
As we wrap up, how do you feel, how does the IMA feel about where we are in this whole talent initiative. As I said, lots of things going on at the State House and elsewhere, your program and others.
Right.
A lot of folks trying to get their arms around it. How do you think things are going?
We think things are moving in the right direction. We're very appreciative of Governor Holcomb and his Next Level Jobs initiative. We were architects of the Employer Training Grant Program. We're pleased to see that that's going to expand. Like I said, there's no silver bullet, but I think if we all work together, the employer community and policymakers, I think we can make a dent in this.
New talent initiative from the Indiana Manufacturers Association. Stephanie Wells, thanks very much. We'll look forward to following the program.
Wonderful. Thank you,
All
Craig.
right. Well, still ahead, our insiders will sound off on some of the week's top stories. But first, with the on-field success of the Colts, has it rejuvenated off-field success as well? In the business of sports, Bill Benner will pose that question to the Colts' Chief Sales and Marketing Officer. What a difference a couple of months and a few games have meant for the Indianapolis Colts, both on the field and off. Bill Benner has more in this week's Inside Indiana Sports. Bill?
Well, Gary, thanks. Well, just a couple of months ago, the Colts were 1-5 on the field and accompanied by thousands of empty blue seats in Lucas Oil Stadium. Now they're not only the talk and toast of the town, but perhaps of the NFL as well. And so what does this resurgence mean for the Colts front office, not only now, but for the future? Roger Vandersnick, their Chief Sales and Marketing Officer, joins us to provide insight. And Roger, thank you for your busy week. And in advance, we admit that we're taping. We don't know exactly when you watch the show, how the outcome will be. But regardless of what happens with Kansas City, this has been an extraordinary, remarkable turnaround. You came to the Colts last October, no Andrew Luck. You go into this season, we have Andrew Luck, but you get off the 1-5 start, and you might be thinking, what the heck have I got myself into? And now, what have you got yourself into?
Sure. Well, thanks for having me on, Bill. It's been quite a change. Had the pleasure to join the Colts and the Irsay family a little over a year ago, and the task really was to work on and evolve the business operations of the entire club to be prepared to take a full advantage of the team performance. And wow, the team performance has come on strong this year. And it's just been a great time over the last 13 months to be able to be a part of that.
Well, and again, as a marketing officer, and we discussed before we went on the air, you know, the bottom line goes on the scoreboard, and that dictates so many things. But now you have this incredible resurgence. What are you doing and looking down the road? How do you take advantage of what's taking place?
Sure. Well, I think a lot of that really is focused directly on our fans. And the first and foremost is taking care of the fans that come out to our stadium each and every week. And so we've given fans many more benefits, more opportunities for seat choices. We've allowed them to start renewing their seats earlier than ever before. And along with that, giving them more incentives and payment plans and things of that nature. We've invested heavily in that area, probably tripling the size of our staff in that group. Another exciting piece is all the work that we do in the media area, particularly in the digital and social area that goes along with all of our great radio broadcast and all of our other television shows. And so that's an opportunity to talk to fans routinely, day in and day out. And I encourage folks to follow us on social media. We've made a lot of changes there. The content is fun, it's exciting, it's compelling, it's laced with humor in a great way, and fans are already responding in a terrific fashion to that.
And as you pointed out, even before this incredible turnaround has taken place on the field, Jim Irsay and everybody you made an investment. You were ready to go when this opportunity presented itself.
I give the Irsay family a tremendous amount of credit. About a couple of years ago, they recognized the changing landscape in terms of sports and entertainment and technology and the way to take in those mediums. And they knew that we needed to make some changes across all of the business operations. And so I got the opportunity to join the Colts and to help work with them side by side to lead these changes. And it's been an exciting period of time.
And again, we got spoiled here in Indianapolis. There was a time there during the Peyton Manning era where you didn't sell tickets at the Colts complex. You just processed orders. It was throw open the doors and here they come.
Well, I think the team that was built back then, the winningest decade, the fan following and fan support is always there from Indianapolis, and it was very, very strong then. And then as that team moved on, it was time to really build up the organization to be in a contemporary fashion to be able to deal with things like social media and changing media habits and changing expectations expectations for fans at events. And I'm proud to say that we're well down the path of doing that.
And of course, a shout out to everybody on that 50-plus roster. But Frank Reich, Chris Ballard, I mean, what they've met in such a short time has been off the charts.
And credit to them and what they've been able to do on the field. And I think also they have been tremendous partners for us in ways that have been helpful with our corporate partners. And so we have a slate of corporate partnerships that are incredibly strong. And Frank and Chris have been a big part of that as well in terms of their willingness to talk to sponsors, to be able to interact with them, to be able to give sponsors a key look behind the scenes. It's a real partnership between the business side and the football side.
Well, Roger, we appreciate you coming on the show. We look forward to
you.
the short term and much to look forward to in the longer term. Gary, back to you.
All right, Bill, thank you. Well, Indiana and Israel have taken the latest step in a unique collaborative effort to propel innovation through private sector partnerships, inviting Hoosier and Israeli companies to submit joint research projects focused on developing high-tech solutions in the ag biosciences and cybersecurity sectors. Inside Indiana business reporter Mary Rachel Redmond joins us now with details. Mary Rachel.
Thanks, Gary. The Indiana Economic Development Corporation and the Israel Innovation Authority issued an official request for proposals this week, inviting businesses from both Indiana and Israel to submit joint research projects focusing on ag biosciences and cybersecurity. The effort is a result of a memorandum of understanding signed by Governor Holcomb and Israeli officials in May. I sat down with Secretary of Commerce Jim Schellinger, who was with the governor on that trip to Israel, and he told me this week that the businesses from both sides will be participating. He says the Indiana Economic Development Corporation and the Israel Innovation Authority will equally weigh in on the request for proposals. Schellinger added the IEDC and Israel Innovation Authority, along with others, will jointly invest in these companies so that technology can be developing simultaneously in both countries. Often referred to as Startup Nation, Israel has the second highest level of entrepreneurial activity globally outside of Silicon Valley and ranks third in the World Economic Forum's innovative ranking. Schellinger is confident this collaboration effort between Indiana and Israel will be mutually beneficial.
We have a lot in common. It's interesting, our geographic area of the country of Israel and Indiana is very similar, although only I think 40 or 50% of their area is desert. So it's really interesting what they're doing technology-wise in the agrobiosciences industry to develop agriculture in deserts. And there's things we're doing here that we could share with them. So it's a natural fit. We get along very well. We have so much in common, and I think that the two of us, we understand that it's a global economy, and our technologies are things we can share. The words of Walt Disney, none of us as smart as all of us. And we put our forces together, and we're finding that out. Bringing different teams of people together from different countries, from different states domestically, different teams and different businesses within Indiana to collaborate. Collaboration is the secret sauce.
To be eligible, Hoosier companies have to meet a list of certain criteria, including being an Indiana-based entity with annual revenue less than $100 million. Companies are also required to have a high-impact business model that demonstrates potential for that company to grow its operations in Indiana with the ability to create high-wage jobs and revenues. Submissions will be accepted through January 31st. Gary?
All right, Mary Rachel, thank you. Well, coming up, our insiders are getting warmed up to sound off on business issues, grabbing the spotlight at the State House. Indiana Forward launches a new push for a hate crimes bill, and a lot more. There they are in the Inside Indiana Business Social Media Lounge, presented by the seasoned commercial bankers at Star Bank, getting to know you and your business. Well, each week a group of insiders joins me to offer perspective on some of the week's top stories. This week sounding off on the 2019 Indiana General Assembly. Indiana Forward has launched a campaign for a comprehensive hate crimes bill. Plus, how about those Colts? Our insiders this week are Stand for Children Indiana Executive Director Justin Ohlmiller. Also, UIndy's Associate Professor of Finance Matt Will. And WGU Advancement President Allison Barber. And welcome one and all to the Insiders for another edition. And we start off with some of the hot button issues at the Indiana State House. Educators one and all here on the Insiders this week. And teacher pay continues to be a big issue. This is a budget writing session and everyone wondering where's the money going to come from. Justin, I'll start with you. Teacher pay, everybody says, hey, that's a big issue. We're really going to be laser focused on it. What do you see happening?
Yeah, well, that's like the question is, what is going to happen at the end of the session? And I think credit the legislators. You see Democrats, you see Republicans saying the same thing. We want to definitely shift more money to teacher pockets for sure. The key is really what's going to happen in terms of those real dollars. I mean, the challenge we face is Indiana teachers are making 17% less than their other college-going careers. There's a massive need for this. I think the other key, though, is what beyond teacher pay is also important. The field itself is a challenge. We're not attracting the best and the brightest into the field. We're not keeping them in the field. It's going to take more than just pay. It's going to be about building career ladders and advancement opportunities for educators, as well as looking at preparation and making sure that we're sending young people into the classroom that are prepared to succeed early and also stay there. So I think it's a multifaceted approach. I will credit the legislature for taking that approach. They've got 3 bills that focus on those 3 different buckets: preparation, career ladders, as well as pay. Right now, though, we're sort of falling short, though, on the pay side. We don't see real money going in to teacher pockets with the current bills that are being debated. My hope is that that changes.
Allison, as you look at it, teacher pay rewarding or just bringing teachers up to where perhaps they should be, but then there's also this teacher shortage issue that really exacerbates it.
Well, I think that's at WGU. We're fortunate to be the largest teacher school in the state of Indiana, but what we see with teachers, and this is something we were talking about, our teachers are in their 30s and 40s, and we just enrolled a teacher, she's getting ready to graduate, she's 62. So what do we know about teachers is they feel like it's a calling and it's their mission and they want to do it. So our students at WG have always wanted to be teachers. They finally have found an affordable pathway to be a teacher. So pay increase is important and we support it, but we know our people are committed and they have a desire to be in the classroom, and an increase in pay may not make a difference.
You know, the shortage issue, though, that's a labor shortage issue across the spectrum that we have in Indiana. You know, we are at beyond full employment now, so there's more people, more job opportunities out there than people looking for jobs. So I would challenge the legislature to look beyond simply money. And I think quality of life, quality of community and environment, those things are just as important to attracting people to Indiana than it is just offering them more dollars.
Yeah, well, I would also just challenge the legislature to listen to educators themselves. I mean, they're going to tell you what it's going to take. And I would say the top 3 issues really are, I mean, no pay is not driving teachers to the profession, but it makes a difference when they start having a family and start figuring out what they need to do next. So pay is an issue, career ladders as well, advancement as well as preparation. Those are the 3 things we're hearing consistently from educators that they want addressed in order to stem this tide of teachers leaving.
Another issue at the Indiana State House promises perhaps to be a hot button issue, and that's potential hate crimes legislation. A coalition, Indiana Forward, was announced this week, a broad-based coalition from around the state, some 700 companies, nonprofits, faith organizations, and others behind this push for hate crimes legislation. Indiana, one of 5 states without comprehensive hate crimes legislation. A human issue, but a lot of people say it's a business issue, a talent issue as well.
It is, and it's just the right thing to do, and the time is now in Indiana. It's maybe past time for us to address this and move on. And it is a workforce and talent issue. People look at where they want to move, where do they want to bring their families, and this is an indicator of how do we value people. And so we support this move.
I feel like it's another issue that's bringing back up the old days of RFRA and the really toxic environment that was created through that, I think, ill-fated legislation. And so I think there's an opportunity for Indiana to get it right. They finally say, no, that was a mistake, that we're not this kind of state. And so my hope is that this is passed with overwhelming support.
One, it's going to be certainly debated a lot at the Indiana State House. Also on the political side of things, we have a candidate for mayor of Indianapolis on the Republican side. Longtime State Senator Jim Merritt announced this week that he will seek the Republican nomination. Your thoughts?
You know, in the city of Indianapolis, you know, the people have thought, well, a Democrat is now a shoe-in for all eternity into the mayor's position. But I think Jim Merritt's probably the one guy that's got a shot at it. You know, he was talking about infrastructure, potholes. You know, he wants to be the guy who's going to be in charge of the Department of Public Works and is going to make the buses run on time and the roads get fixed. And so I think he's got a real shot at it. It's interesting, though, because Democrats are usually on the, you know, the let's community police side, and the current mayor is more of the, you know, law enforcement side. And I think Jim Merritt has an opportunity to kind of beat him on his left flank relative to being in the community.
Justin, you think it can be a competitive race?
I mean, if you're looking at the one candidate that could put the heat on the Democrats, I think Jim Merritt is reputable. He can raise money. He's obviously, you know, won several campaigns, and he's got some name ID out there. So I mean, to me, it does speak to the fact that there's a legitimate candidate that's going to run to try to make it competitive. I think the key is, like, really has the city reached a point where it is just too heavily Democrat on the trend side. It's also an off-year election, though, so that electorate is different in a mayor's race as well, so it's important to keep in mind.
Yeah. Big news, kind of the global scene, if you will, this week with the announcement that an Indiana-Israeli collaboration is targeting innovation. And Allison, this was a memorandum of understanding that was signed last year when Governor Holcomb, Secretary Schellinger visited Israel. You hear about these all the time, and they really usually don't amount to much. This is really focused on fostering innovation here in Indiana and in Israel.
Yes, and it takes Indiana to the global scene and the global marketplace, which is really terrific leadership from IEDC and Jim and the governor. And it's got teeth to it. You know, it's not just a great idea and a handshake. There is a way ahead for us to work with Israel as it relates to the cyberspace and agrobioscience. And that's right in our sweet spot, and I think Indiana's ready for it, and I think the work that we're doing in Israel is very, very promising.
You know, there's a reason the rest of the country is jealous of Indiana's government and business partnership that we've had, because we keep getting real investment. You know, foreign direct investment in Indiana on a per capita basis is the highest in the country, and we continue to play on that strength where we get the rest of the world coming to Indiana, whether it's Canada, Mexico, Japan, or now Israel. What a great partnership.
We'll run out of time here, but Lilly announced a big acquisition, $8 billion, a cancer company, Loxo Oncology, continuing their move to collaborate and acquire.
You know, I've said in the past, Lilly has three expertise: R&D, marketing, and acquisitions. They've really perfected this. They are the leader in the pharmaceutical industry when it comes to acquiring other companies, and this is just another example of them leading the pack.
Yeah. Colts, we have 30 seconds to go. Now, as we tape this show, some of you watching, the game will be over. Some, it will not have been played yet. But regardless of what happens, the Colts seem to be back.
It's great.
And that's good for the city.
It's great for the city. We're proud of our team. They've really made great progress, and they're going to win.
Yeah.
January.
Okay, a prediction.
Yeah, January is so much better when the Colts are playing. And so just different environment. The weekend's just tremendously hopeful for this weekend.
Okay, you predicted before the season they'd make a deep run in the playoffs.
On this show, you got a tape of it. I want to see it up on the screen.
All right, we'll look for that. Matt Will, also Allison Barber and Justin Oldmiller. Thank you, one and all. And we'll be right back after this. Coming up next week, we catch up with former Indianapolis Mayor Greg Ballard. He has a new book out, Less Oil, More Caskets. He thinks we could reduce military deaths by changing the way we fuel our cars and trucks. Thanks for joining us this week. I'm Gary Dick. Go out and make it a successful week.
Inside Indiana Business with Gary Dick is a production of Grow Indiana Media Ventures with support from WFYI Productions.